Energy. It is all around us, both seen and unseen. It affects all the lives within humanity, our great planet Earth, and the entire universe. It is a conscious cosmic matrix, an ever-evolving cycle, creating, breaking down, and recreating. This is Connected with your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Andrea tells us that energy is the foundation of our human experience, intrinsically affecting every facet of our lives, our perceptions, choices, and actions, as well as the challenges, opportunities, and people we attract. So now, please welcome the host of Connected, Andrea Dragonfly.
Hey, good people. Welcome. It's Andrea Dragonfly, and this is the show Connected. And we are nearing our time together on the Bold Brave TV platform. And so, again, I was just going to say that I am looking at taking a little bit of a break. And then I do believe my plan is to do much shorter videos off of just my own YouTube channel. So that stuff will be coming out soon. More promoting that. I have to kind of clean up my YouTube channel because it's got a few of my shows on it. But again, I'm not very techy. And my tech crew, well, let's just say they're not with me anymore. So I have to learn all this stuff on my own. So, and it's happening, I'm building my relationship with technology. So it's just a little slower. And as you know, I probably am not on social media a whole lot, but, I'm slowly growing into it. So my new platform will be certainly more on Instagram, on Facebook, and then checking out some other different channels as well. I know that there's different platforms out there that I'm exploring as to how else to get just shorter messages on certain topics of consciousness and connection and all of that. So that will be coming your way. Now, we have been really in this incredible, time of energy. We are in another eclipse season, and tonight, is the lunar eclipse that will be seen throughout most of all of the United States, North America, Canada, Mexico, parts of South America even. And then I do believe that on the other side of the world, I can't remember exactly where it falls, but it'll be seen somewhere over there too. But it's more of this this cycle that is Europe, and some very significant parts of Africa will be missing it. So it's going to be kind of coming through this longitudinal line for the Americas, and then on the other side, maybe in the Middle East somewhere. I don't know that, but here's the thing. No matter what, this is life changing. And I know I've been talking about this for a while. From a year ago, I said there's no coincidences this show's coming at this time, because everything's connected. And this eclipse season is one of those moments of this year. We already talked about this new year being a powerful new year that will be very memorable in all future times to come. We'll look back at this time, 2025 to 2026, and see these huge shifts and changes. And we're already seeing it within the political climate of the United States. We're seeing how our relationships are being kind of stressed between other types of people, within Canada, within Mexico, within our allies that the United States has always had, within NATO. So we see a lot of these, pressured, these relationships that are shifting and changing, and what's going to happen. How are we moving this forward? And these eclipses are going to be very powerful in doing that. And so I strongly encourage, of course, if you've been watching and following along with me here, to check out some of the YouTube videos on the eclipses that are happening. See if you can even pull it up on your chart and see, within your sun sign or your rising sign. And those are two signs that your sun sign is kind of really your career, your life, your action in the world. But your rising sign is really about how you play the game of life, and about, it's more of like a full balanced version of yourself, right? So for me, in a tropical or Western astrology, I'm an Aries. I'm coming with all this information, like, yeah, but I'm on the cusp though. I'm also got a lot of Pisces in me. However, so I look up for my sign Aries. If people are doing tropical astrology, I'm going to look my Aries tropical sign up and go with that, because that's the way the astrologer is giving the information. Now, I also work on another astrology level. I work with sidereal or Vedic and some of these other astrologies that are more about the exact alignment of the stars in the sky at the time of our birth, as opposed to resetting at every spring equinox, which is coming up this month, coming up in a couple weeks, right? Or is it next week even? Holy moly. So my rising is Libra. So I'm going to look at Libra rising. I'm going to look at my sun sign Aries, and I'm going to get a full picture of how this is going to impact me personally a little bit more deeply than if I'm just looking up my Aries. So I encourage you to check that out for yourselves. And so with this, we are looking at this powerful season. Today, again, is the lunar eclipse for the full moon, which means, here's the sun, the earth is in the middle, and the moon is on the other side of the sun as the earth crosses through. And that shadow of the earth will be cast upon the moon, and that will be which blocks the moon out, and we'll be able to see that. It's also a blood moon, which is also a very auspicious type of moon coming in. It means that it's much closer into the atmosphere, and so we're going to see it to have this more orangey red glow to it as well. And the closer the moon is to the earth and to us, the more powerful of an effect it's going to have on us. And I'm not going to go ahead and go into all the astrology, because that's not, my area of expertise, but it's huge. And I really just encourage you all to check that out. And of course, we have a few more shows together in 2 weeks when we have the solar eclipse. And that will be coming up on March 30th. So 29th, 30th for different people. Well, I guess when I see different people, it just depends on where you are in the world, right? So that also is happening. And that really is coming in with huge change, huge shifts in a way that we're going to be like, wow, sometimes it's like miracle energy. Sometimes it's like, wow, I could never have guessed these things happening. And, we've been looking at natural disasters that have been happening, of course, through the last 6 months already. If we even go back to November of last year and the floods that were happening, the hurricane season that was going on through the whole, southeastern part of the United States. And then the fires that have been going on, and especially LA burning in January. And there's a lot of other things that have been going on. So this is like, the gods, the angels, the judgment card in the tarot deck is saying, hey, everybody, this is a call to rise. It's a call to get, to really shake off any area of your energy body that still is kind of half asleep, as to the fact that we need to become a little bit more active in our role as a human being on the planet. The time of complacency is over. Unless you want to see the United States move into, a place where many of us don't have the same freedoms that we had before, you can sit back and do nothing. But now, even on an energetic level, even through prayer, even through collective prayer, connecting, right? There's no coincidence this show's called Connected. Because once we connect on this, the individual and collective level, we can add our energy into that greater environment for positive change. We can overcome those fears that we might be carrying with us when we are being confronted with change. Change is one of the hardest things for humans to kind of experience, because we're used to the old way. the familiar. And when we don't know what's coming down the pike, we're like, oh God, how's this going to affect me? Am I going to be able to handle it? I've already experienced a lot of trauma in my life. I've already had struggles in my life that I don't know how I'm going to handle that, and especially looking at, there's this fear, it's a collective fear of wiping out the middle class, and bringing, that poverty line to bringing that up, you know, um, more having this conversation with my family several months ago, and like the average middle class lifestyle now is $350,000, and how my children are like, how the heck are we going to achieve that right now with just getting started in their careers and getting going, and how certain pathways of career and success don't automatically lead to a $350,000 annual income with maybe if you're being some sort of technology and engineering, sure, lawyer, okay, doctor, I don't even know those things anymore, but things have changed. It's not the old way it was 20 years ago. And so we have to prepare ourselves for how do we go and flow with this change that is upon us, right? So this eclipse season is huge. So I invite you. The lunar eclipses are about letting go. That full moon is letting go of some of those fears that you've been carrying your whole life. And so even if you start looking up some of the eclipse information, even before now, because the eclipses, and I'm going to read it off my phone just because it's easier, but for Eastern Standard Time, like the process is already happening, but you're going to see like the fullness of the eclipse from 2:26 a.m. to 3:31 a.m. for Eastern time. And so then take that back an hour for 1:26 to 2:31 Central time. And again, taking that further to 12:26 to 2:31 a.m. Taking that back a step from 11:26 for Pacific time to 1:31. My brain and the ability to do math can sometimes, like simple math, even though I'm like rattling it off to you, so that would be Pacific time. And then I believe Alaska goes through daylight savings as well. So then they're even earlier, for that as well. So they would be at 10:26 to 11:31. And Hawaii doesn't do daylight savings, so I'm 4 hours behind Mountain Time. So mine's at 8:26, right? So this is that opportunity when we put our awareness, because again, it's about waking up. It's about recognizing levels of consciousness. When we're conscious of what's happening, we can use that for our greatest advantage. We can use that to really move ourselves forward for our healing, the healing of the fears that are coming down through this great change that we see all around us. There's a lot of uncertainty happening, and globally for sure, because whatever we're doing in the United States has a major reverberation that's going around the world, right? So I was even having a conversation with a beautiful new friend of mine, and looking at like being here in Hawaii, and even Honolulu and Oahu is another target once again, if there were to be some sort of trade war type of war that moves into Pearl Harbor being bombed again. And so those were some concerns that were already being felt and discussed on some of the global news. And so these are things that are happening that, like, even here, I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, exactly. Haven't really sat with that in my energy field yet. So bringing that in and saying, okay, all right, those are possibilities. And it's not just going to be Honolulu. It's going to be like multiple cities at one time, like 8 different cities is what they were talking about. Like, where are the big ones happening, So these are things that are possible. And how do we prepare ourselves for them, right? So we have to let go of the fear and step into, hey, we're at a time in life where anything is possible. This isn't recorded. The Mayans did not record this part. The Mayan calendar ended in 2012, and they couldn't see past that. This is the wobble, that we're in as we're moving ourselves forward. And so this is a really powerful time, because I also want to share, this whole show is really about that communication with the unseen forces. And how I've been starting to introduce this over the last several months is that when we are ready to actually listen, it's kind of like, do you believe in fairies? And everybody's like, oh yeah, that's for children. Oh, that's baby stuff or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's childhood, silliness or whatever. But it's like, when we start connecting into the fact that there is consciousness, more of it than what we can see, there's far more consciousness and things happening in the unseen worlds than in the seen worlds. And that we are waking up to that, right? That we're waking up and saying, oh, wait a minute, maybe there's something more than my job and my, just waking up and having a family and getting a job and going on vacation if we can afford it, because not everybody can afford that anymore. You know what I mean? And that there's something else going on besides just this old way that we've been living, and relating. That it's not just about the sports. It's not just about the politics. It's not just about, whatever injustice or unfairness or traumas that we've been accruing throughout our lives, that there might be purpose or reason or something else behind this, right? And so it's part of this conversation that says, hey, whatever your life story is, whatever things that you've experienced, because you're going to perceive the world based on your life experience. This is episode 1 and 2 and 3. That we're all going to have a different lens on how we see the world. And if you've never been in direct communication with an unseen force, then you're not going to believe it. You're going to be like, yeah, that's bullshit. That's woo-woo, or whatever people call it these days, right? I don't believe that. And trust me, I have my lovely ex-husband. Maybe it's one of the reasons we're not together. He's an atheist. He's like, no, I can't believe that. I don't believe that. And it's like, okay, everybody gets the choice. Everybody gets the choice. But if we say, no, I'm not open to receiving that information, then we can't hear when they speak to us. We've shut the door on that. But if we are saying, hey, you know what? I still believe in fairies. I still believe in the forest, creatures and spirits, which was last week's show, right? These energies that are there helping and kind of like stewarding life as it evolves season by season. And some things will go extinct. And we talked about the rotation of time and the spirits of the rotation of time and how these can go over huge, long epochs. So we talked about nature spirits and how there's elemental spirits that will be working with how nature will shift and change, because we have the elements of fire and heat, right? We have water and mist. We have earth. And we have air. And these 4 different energies are going to shape and shift in different ways. And just even think about it. If certain floodplains, end up getting filled with water, and that water doesn't leave, like they're talking about, we're looking at possibilities of earthquakes. And remember like the St. Andre's fault, and about how California is going to fall into the ocean. Like these are the things that these big earth things are happening. And these are the nature spirits that are also trying to say, hey, guess what? These, change is inevitable. We'll always have change. How do we adapt and work with it? If you live in the Florida Keys and the sea starts to rise because the glacials are melting, this is part of evolutionary science. This is what we can find in the archaeological record. This is how certain things work. So when those things rise and you're living there and you no longer can afford the flood insurance, you got to move. You know what I mean? Like, and as shitty as that feels, because that's your home, it's your community, you know, we are being kind of pushed into this new part of humanity that says some of us, wherever we're living, and I'm speaking specifically to our US peoples, you might be now having to find a new place that's going to meet your needs because the coastal line is vulnerable. That's what I'm going to use. Vulnerable. We don't know what's going to happen. Things are happening and they're going to continue to happen until we wake up, until we recognize, hey, guess what? There's something happening here. And and it's not just about recycling your plastics in your cans and your glasses anymore. It's about, hey, guess what? We need to step in to being more active in saying no to certain things about what's happening in the world. And I started talking about this last week about right relationship. Now, we're going to take a quick break. And in that break, 2 minutes, as always, I'm going to go ahead and just take my glass of water, land, and then when we get back, we're going to dive deeper into that and into this right relationship, the Aini, the Pono, the communications. And I want to share a little bit about my story because it's an extraordinary story of communicating with these beings. And I've been communicating with these beings. Well, shit, I guess, I mean, the first time I ever had that communication, I was like 8 or 9 years old. But throughout my life, they've communicated with me, and I didn't always understand because I didn't know. Nobody showed me. How do I listen? But over time, I had to learn that. And so I'm going to talk with you because you may very well be connected to these beings too. And if not, if you want to be connected to these beings, this is our birthright. We're all available for that, right? So we're going to take a quick break. And when I get back, I'm going to jump more into that and about where this is going to take us for the future. So see you back here in 2. Thanks.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense Radio Show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Hey, welcome back. Okay. So communication with these energy beings, right? Now, I just pulled up on break because I didn't have this in advance. I had a crazy day because it's eclipse day. And so I slid in at this, like the last minute by the skin of my teeth to put the show on today because I got caught up in the world. And so it was just interesting how even just with my allies, they're like, girl, you got this show. Don't worry about it. Because usually I'll spend a lot of time just preparing and not spending a whole lot of time out in town, just kind of really landing the information that I want to share with everybody. But today was a little different. And so just kind of coming in and just knowing that, hey, these guys, these teammates of mine, the unseen team members that I call them, they're guiding me. They're like, yeah, you got this. You've been talking about these kinds of things for many years now, so just bring it out. And so I want to just start by talking about even extraterrestrials, and we can have a whole nother piece on this. I'm going to put some information on the page, my media page, of course, which is really going to just kind of like, if you haven't seen this or checked this out already, please go and check it out. But Dr. Stephen Greer, he's been a lifelong, I don't even remember what his title is, but he's gone through like 4 different presidential administrations, being like one of the main people who works with the whole intelligence, with extraterrestrial intelligence within the government, right? So whatever his role is, but so he's gone through 4 different administrations in that. Now he no longer is in that administration working for the Trump or anything like that, but he has put out a few different videos. One of them called "The Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind: Contact Has Begun." If you haven't seen that yet, it used to be playing on Prime, maybe. I believe it was Prime. I went and looked for it recently because I wanted my son to watch it, and I don't know if they still have it on there, but do your research, find it. If you haven't seen it, I highly, highly recommend that you see it, because Dr. Stephen Greer, what he's saying is that these beings, now we call them extraterrestrials, but in the spiritual realm, they're just spiritual beings. They're all, every being is a conscious being. We want to call them extraterrestrial because they're not of this earth. Great. That's another name for them, right? And they can come from different galaxies, and they can come from different universes, and all sorts of different kinds of things. However, there's many of them that are here to support us. Because nuclear weapons have been created and we have the opportunity to destroy our planet on this level, this is a planet for us to grow human consciousness. There's even beings from other, star systems and galaxies and universes that are in human form with us. Whether you want to believe it or not, that's wherever your consciousness is to be able to receive that is fine. Because there's a lot of, support for humans here. If you're human and you're coming in and this is your first star system that you've ever experienced, you're a natural born human being. But if you are a star being that's come here, which there's only 20% of the population, this is what I've been getting. This is the information that comes in for me. It's like, 20% of the population that of humanity are star beings in human form to help support humanity and their growth and evolution forward, especially at the time of the ego. And some of them, like half of that, so 10% are there to help support humanity. And the other 10% are there to actually hinder the process of humanity. And so that's a whole nother show. But Stephen Greer talks about the ones that the star beings that are actually not in human form, who are here to support humanity. They're here to make sure that whoever is behind the nuclear weapons doesn't push that button and create a whole nother nuclear war. And that there's even stories about how that there was a possibility of that happening and the button was pushed. This is a story on Dr. Stephen Greer's Fifth Contact Has Begun, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. So there's even a story there about how there was some of this and that it was directly intercepted by our allies. And so the contact has begun, and Stephen Greer talks about, I think it's called, probably should look this up before we started, but he's got an app out there. I even have it on my phone because you can connect with other people who are also interested in making contact. Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind is where you invite the spiritual beings to communicate with you. And there's beautiful stories that Dr. Stephen Greer has on his documentaries. So again, I'm going to put that on my media channel to go underneath this episode for the resources. And this begins to open up that conversation. Now, this is just kind of a little preview, because we'll have a deeper conversation of this before we end these shows on Bold Brave TV, because I have an hour platform here, right? And this is kind of a longer conversation, but I want to introduce that because contact has begun, and it began a while ago. And if we can hear, but not just through our ears, if we're opening to listening, we can hear on a multisensory level. Now, I've had multiple experiences receiving information. And again, I shared with you when I was like 8 or 9 years old, I had this energy being come into my body, tell me, question everything, that what you're being shown is only just a slice of the truth. Growing up in Roman Catholic grade school in the suburbs of Detroit, right out on the outskirts of Detroit, and which completely imprinted in me and paved the way for where I was to go in my life. By 4th grade, I was writing, my first research paper on, African tribal religions and voodoo. Things like that, right? By the time I was in, graduating from high school, I was getting this different types of information, but I didn't know how to listen. I was still new to that. I'm 18 years old, what is this information that's coming? All I know is I can feel something really big in me that's saying, no, you're not going to college. You're going somewhere else. You don't know where you're going, and that's okay. Just go. Right? And that's how my life started. Now, when I went to herb school and I started working with the plants and getting in and growing the gardens and planting the gardens and weeding the gardens and starting my family and raising my family, and I had multiple businesses. I was doing herbs. I was working as a doula. I was doing rites of passage ceremonies and things that I was really getting myself into, and really connecting into the spiritual movement back in those early times of mid-90s, right? And so I was starting to make the connection with the plants. And the plants, I'd get out in the garden and they would begin to kind of communicate with me, but it would be sometimes like, you need to be in the garden more often, because raising children and a family and multiple businesses, like playing and working with these plants, it's like, you need to come in the garden more often because we're here to teach you. We're here. We need you here. If we're going to walk you through being a woman who's connected to plants, you got to be with plants. So I was like, oh shit, okay. So that was the first thing coming into I was in my mid-20s maybe at that time, knowing that I need to be in the garden and listen. Now, the garden is also the place where I found my therapy, where I found that place that whenever there's something happening within my energy field, take it to the garden. And the energy, when we talk about those spirit beings, we talk about, the different earth, nature spirits, but even Pachamama, Mother Sophia, Mama Tierra, she who has many, many names, there's that energy that lives within the earth. If you're gardening and you don't have your garden gloves on, you can feel the drawing out of energy. It makes your hands dry. This is how we can really release whatever we got going on in our bodies. We can put our palms of our feet, our palms of our hands onto the earth and allow that to move through, right? And it can actually cleanse and purify us. When we become conscious, we can ask the Great Mother Earth to cleanse and purify something specific out of our energy field. Take this fear, take this worry, take this experience of stress around finances or around juggling my job or whatever, help me move through this, because it's this drawing out energy that is coming through. So they begin to tell us how to work with them. This is how the old wise ones, the witches, which is the actual translation of wise one, learned how to use herbs in the first place for all the different ailments that we know how to use them. In herb school, they say a great herbalist can do everything with 20 plants. But it's the relationship you build with those 20 plants. It's about communicating with them, right? So they can speak to us. Minerals. Now, I remember I got really sick, and this was around well, I was divorced, so this is probably somewhere in the last 12 years. Let's just say it was like 10 years ago. And I had gotten really sick and I got this like lung infection. And I don't go see a regular doctor. I work with plants for the most part. I will see a doctor if I really need to. And I remember just feeling the intensity of my lungs. And I was just like, ooh, what's going on here? And in my liminal sleep stage, so as I was waking up, there's that moment where we're still kind of asleep but not asleep, right? Like we're waking up and we can maybe fall back asleep. So that very it's I'm calling it liminal, but there's the other word, lucid dreaming. That's it. And it's like the consciousness comes in, and I got pleurisy, use pleurisy, right? And it's like, oh, is this the pleurisy plant like coming to me? Even to just suggest I'm your antidote, right? And at the time, it's not like I had a really strong developed relationship with the pleurisy root. It just comes in and makes itself known in that space. But it's because I'm open. I've invited them to communicate with me. When I work with the mineral realm, right? And I also work with muscle testing, and I use my fingers. And so if it's a yes, it's a hard catch. If it's a no, it's a quick slide. If there's something in the middle of that, meaning like you're onto something but you're not quite there, it's going to be a catch and slide. And then sometimes it's a catch. So you got to learn. You got to play with it. I've been doing it for years, so I have a powerful relationship with it. But working with minerals, and so like even talking with minerals, holding it, and you see people muscle testing in the aisles of the health food store, which I would be one of those people. Like I'm pulling up a essential oil. I'm like, hey, is this oil good for me? Is this what I need right now? Is my body needing this? And so, especially with minerals. And I was, just recently with my friend a couple weeks ago when we were traveling around the island, she had gotten really depleted she's really sensitive to all the EMFs and stuff. And I found this mineral complex that has, that was really powerful. And I was just like, whoa, when I even held it, it was just like this wave of energy that came over me, right? So when we're open to receiving this, we just have to shift our consciousness into that. We move into this place that says, I'm open to hearing you communicate with me more than just with my ears. I'm open in my energy field. And sometimes we're going to feel it, clairsentience. That's what that is. Sometimes that knowing comes in, which is claircognizance, clear knowing, cognition. Sometimes we hear it like the pleurisy spoke to me. Pleurisy root, pleurisy, you need pleurisy. And that's like, so that's clairaudience, right? Sometimes we can see certain things. And so they're communicating when we're open to using our super sensible, our super senses. These are us inviting our senses to activate, to connect into the numinous. The numinous is that conscious field of energy where energy beings and consciousness can connect with us. When people, now here's even on the darker side, because we have to, if you're going to be a spiritual, and I want to say conscious person, if you're on the path of consciousness, you have to remember that the shadow and the dark side, you got to know that too. You can't just only say, oh God, that's scary, I can't do that, I'm only going to go to the light, because that's the invitation for that darkness to say, we're going to follow you and kind of like really make it be known that you need to learn the dark side too. So there's that. But I mean, I remember working with a client, and she would have whispers in her ears with a dark energy that was, upon her, letting it be known that it wasn't inside of her, but it was next to her. It was shapeshift through her pictures on her walls and on the desk and on the flat surfaces. So there are ways in which this unseen energy is communicating with us. We have ghosts, who will come and connect with us. And most oftentimes, they're not malevolent. They're just trying to either find somebody to help them pass through the threshold back into where they can go so that they can move forward into their future destiny, or if they have a dark attachment, because ghosts can have that too. um, Maybe they want to mess with you and frighten you. That's sometimes a tactic, but most oftentimes they're just trying to say, "Hey, I'm here, and I possibly might even need your help." Right? And when we can become aware that that's real, and we can start working with that and not being afraid of that, this is the time of us recognizing that consciousness is all around us, and we don't have to be afraid of it because it's unfamiliar. We're afraid of it because it's unfamiliar, because we don't have classes in school that say, "Hey, guess what? When this happens, this is how we create relationship." Or even if there's a dark, like I've worked with a lot of dark energies and had to move them on their way, move them out of this earthly realm. And part of it is they're tricky and they can lie to me. But it's like just hanging out with anybody who's tricky and will lie to you, right? Don't take what they say to heart. Don't believe them. Just be like, okay, but by doing this, I want to remind you, when I do this, I'm not, it's just not me alone. I'm working with a team who also helps protect me in those times, right? So this is communication. Now, I want to share a little bit about how in 2022, it was the Day of the Dead. And I was doing, actually, I'm just getting a notification here that we're nearing time for another break, and then I'm going to move into this. But this was where my own ancestors came to me and spoke to me and said, "Andrea, it's time for you to move into a different direction. You can continue absolutely to still do the work you're doing with the energy work, the healing, but that there's this opportunity, and that this is for you. This is your opportunity, and you can take it if you want." So we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, I'm going to share more about that, because this is something that has actually put me on a whole different mission in life. And it's by communicating with unseen energy and believing it and trusting it. And by all means, it hasn't been easy. Hasn't been an easy road doing that. But I want to share more about that, because the world is shifting, and it was a call to action. My call, saying, "Okay, woman, you've been working with us for a long time, and now we have a new mission for you, and we're going to present it to you. And you can choose it or not, because we always have free will, always, right? So within that, you can choose this or not." And so we're going to take that break, and when we get back, I'm going to share a little bit more about that, and about how maybe there's some energy knocking on your door right now, even to help put you into a mission that's going to create change in a positive way for yourself, those you love, your loved ones, your community, your state, your nation, whatever, during this crazy time of change. All right, give me 2 minutes. I'll see you back here. Thanks.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic, on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hey there, welcome back. And always just a reminder, because we got about less than 15 minutes left of the show here, but there's always that call-in number at the very top of the screen. If you ever feel like, hey, clarify something, or can you talk about this, or kind of direct the conversation even. Like, I have a wealth of information to add to what you may already know, and if you don't know it yet, there's so many ways we can look at all this information, because there's no one right way. There's so many aspects to it. So whatever information I'm bringing you, bring it in, let it inform you, let it find the truth within you, let that activate. And because there's many ways to talk about all these different subjects, right? So to appreciate y'all being here with me. And so even by doing the show actually started by my team putting my information in the path of these being contacted by different people to do, quick little radio, podcasts, and then, which are all on my media channel, as you know, if you've been there, and then which led to doing this Bold Brave television, because what happens is that on an evolutionary trajectory, all of this is like this evolutionary point in time has all been working for a while. And the unseen beings know this. We as humans, we're very much in the present, or like maybe we're thinking about our future, but not in the way of a planetary evolutionary future, and not in the way the planets, especially during, when it comes to eclipses and planetary alignments and all sorts of things and different house changes and all the ways in which the planets are actually influencing the energies of humans on the planet, right? So we're looking at a lot of things here, but it was kind of like, Andrea, you need to get this information out. Now, I don't research, and, of course, this is just a talk podcast, right? And of course, I look on YouTube, and there's wonderful people doing wonderful things with teams of editors and video people and being able to pull all this video. And I'd love to be able to do something like that in the future. I just need a team to do that, because that's not something of my skill set. My skill set is talking to plants in the land and guardians and stuff. That's my skill set. Like, I got that. So how do we bridge all of that together, right? So, but anyway, so this is the team coming in. They're like, it's time for you to bring this information out, right? And so this has been my practice. This last year has been practice, and we'll see where it goes. Because now that I'm a little bit more familiar with the camera, oh my God, it was so scared the first 3 months of doing this, and you go back and look at those shows and I was terrified, right? Now it's okay, whatever. So they, so the team had when I say the team, my team that's consists of all these different beings, right? So they've been pushing me. They've been putting me on the path, putting my information in places where I never reached out to that. I have no idea how they got my information. There was a time I didn't even have my website up and going, and I'm being contacted by who and what and why. And when there's so many other types of people doing this kind of work, but I've also been a deeply devoted woman of right relationship, of integrity as well. Meaning that I'm not going to, like, I have such a deep, profound relationship with the unseen. And I know that they're watching every move I make. And my allegiance and my allyship really goes to them. And when I come in with new partnerships, like my, like dating and whatnot, it's like, first and foremost, like, I'm on a mission. I'm devoted. I devoted myself in 2010, and so maybe it's 2009 even, like the deep devotion. And since then, so it's been at least 15 years of the deep devotion that my spiritual practice moved in very powerful ways, because I gave my life to it. I aligned and said, this is what this lifetime is going to be for me, is about this. And so my team has been like, okay, you've been gathering the information, you've been doing all these things. Now it's time for you to go. Okay, well, before break, I was talking about my father and my sister. My sister died in 2016. My father died in 2017, and in 2022, they came to me in a Day of the Dead ceremony, which I do every year with my ancestors, and throughout this whole life incarnation, and I've, and they came in and they told me, they said, my sister came in and she put her her right hand on my left shoulder, and my father put his left hand on my right shoulder, and they came together and they bridged this light. They weren't in their physical incarnated bodies from when I saw them last. They were just light energy, but it was their energy. Like, when you see your friend and you give them a hug, or your family member, it was exactly that way, but without the physical vessel, right? And so they transmitted into my heart, and they said to me, you're going to go on a trip. And it's very important that you go, and that you go alone. And it's going to bring you to the next level of your service. And the world is waiting for you. This is where you're going. And we're going to support you along the way. And I was just like, wow, okay. I've never had them communicate with me like that, right? So that was very different. I mean, it was a direct communication, and we don't always get that. Now, I've had other ways of communicating with my family through dream time, and through music, and through things that come up, and through my father came into my ex-partner even and spoke to me just recently. This was this past fall, and that was a beautiful gift, and he came in and he spoke through his mouth and gave me a very direct message during that time. So we have different ways that our ancestors will even show up and communicate with us. And so that's what like for me. For you, it can be very different, right? It can be other people. You can have your ancestors come in through other people, or a stranger, seeing a stranger walking on the beach, or for me, it was a beach problem, but walking down the street, however. But moving into this next piece, I ended up going to Maui. It took me to Maui, and I had no idea it was the Hawaiian Islands. It's so off my radar. And when I arrived in Maui, everything unfolded in this way that I could never have imagined, because I was going with trust. I had no idea where I was going to stay. I had no idea what I was going to do about a car. I had no idea for how long I was going, but I was going to give myself like 3 months, and everything fell into to just like this ease. Everything fell into place. And I was actually in the Iao Valley with my new friend and roommate and another friend that connected us. And it was 4th of July, 2023. So now this is, 7 months later in here, or 8 months later, whatever that is. And I was thinking about the problems that the islands were experiencing with recycling and trash, and about how what's happening in the world and what's happening with, everything being so disposable that, Costco, Sam's Club, the amount of consumption, the consumer capitalistic issue that we have, and about the mass, drilling and exploiting of the planet Earth and extracting her minerals and nutrients at a far faster pace than she can replenish them, and about how we have to derail the train. And this is me coming into environmentalism. And of course, I've always been an earth steward. I'm deeply connected to the earth, but now I'm moving into this deeper environmental kind of like, yeah, let's work for what the heck's happening with the world right now. And when I started to say that there has to be something other than plastic, petroleum plastic, all these toxins that kill, that are polluting the oceans, the rivers, the ponds, the lakes, the water systems that are, creating, arid environments across certain parts of of continents, even, right? Or the harvesting of the rainforest, that's the lungs of the planet, creating huge issues in climate change too, right? It's all connected. Everything's connected. And so with the little bit of time I have here comes the land guardian down the river that I was sitting on. And she comes right in to me and speaks. And at the time that she's rolling down the river, it's like drums, like brrr, I have no idea to be able to even explain it, because this is real. But can I prove it? No, right? This is real. She comes in and she's like, yes, 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 you got it. And the grasses that were before me are animating. And they're like, we are the answer. We are the solution. We will create that product. There's a new technology coming in. And they gave it. And I got this download directly into my being. And it's not just a new technology, not just a new bioplastic has anything to do with any toxic byproduct of petroleum and things that are bad and going to hurt the planet. But this whole new corporate cooperative style from the beginning to the end, from the growing, the harvesting, the manufacturing, the distributing, the administrating. I'm at the very end of our time here. And so we're going to bring this conversation into next week, because here we are, is that they are communicating with us. They are sharing and showing us when we're open, when we're willing, when we're wanting to hear, or when we're willing to listen to what they say. They can bring us some of the most extraordinary bits of information, and they can actually give us the formulas, share us exactly what it's going to look like, or imprint into us the bigger picture of what's to happen for the future, the direction in which we're going. And it doesn't look the same way it does today. So I'm here on this huge project, which I want to share more about next week. That is very much about creating a new world, and very much about what we've known up until this point is not the way it's going to look. And part of what Trump's doing in the dismantling of everything is part of breaking everything down. Now, maybe what he wants to have happen, go up, I don't think it's going to happen, because I think that he's all for the billionaires club. And I think this is where the human unity comes together and something else happens amongst that. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that next week. And as always, I just want to say thank you for being with me with the show, with the connecting into consciousness, letting it fill you, letting it expand you, always inviting you to do more research on your own. We're at a great time of change. And so all I can say is whoever is watching these shows, that there's no coincidences, that you are part of the change. And whether you are bringing the change to the people who are also very new at being introduced to this, that this is kind of like the basics. It's not the advanced groups. It's the basic understanding of how everything's coming together, right? So if you know the basics, then you can share the basics and we can build the unity and the community together, right? So stay connected, go and have a beautiful week. Happy lunar eclipse. It's going to be big. You know, there's some cultures that say don't look at it. Others are like fully on looking at it. You choose whatever you, but if you choose to look at it and your life has a drastic change afterward, possibly it's the fact that you witnessed it directly and fully opened yourself to that it could have even more of a powerful impact. But who's to say? Is that real? Or were you just already ready for it to happen? Because big shifts and changes are coming for all of us. So I wish you all the best. I'll see you next week. Take care.
This has been Connected with your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Join Andrea each week on an extraordinary journey, exploring the consciousness of energy and how you are connected. Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.